In the top drawer here, we have all the drill bits for the drill press. We have cobalt bits, black bits, transfer punches, left-hand drill bits, letter bits. That's pretty much it for the drill bits. Moving down to the second drawer, we have some broken taps, a tap holder, some screw extractors, some annular cutters, countersinks, Morse number 2 drift pin punches, and some Morse number 2 adapters. In the third drawer here, we have some hole saws, Forstner bits, masonry bits, and some arbors. Moving down, we have the Milwaukee Hole Saw Kit, the Festool Forstner bit, and some extensions for bits. And then the last drawer is more of the same, just more long bits and hole saws. My first snap-on toolbox is set up for automotive work. I have all my huge impact sockets in the back, metric and standard. These are all snap-on. And then I have some snap-on sockets, deep well, mid well, and shallow, both 3/8 and 1/4 inch. And then some snap-on swivels. I have more swivels over here, spark plug sockets, oil filter sockets. These are some Blue Point extractor sockets. We have crow's feet, low profile sockets, a couple huge ratchets, some specialty sockets, and some Volkswagen 12-point sockets in this drawer. My second drawer here is full of all my extensions and ratchets. I have it set up in the foam here, which is very nice. It allows me to see what's missing and be very well organized. Moving right along, we have the screwdrivers. I have some automotive picks over here, some radiator hose pullers, and then we have some trim panel removal tools and anything that fits in the screwdriver category. Moving on to the metric wrench drawer, we have a set of gear wrench wrenches that are missing, and then a set of snap-on flank drive plus from 24 down to 8. We have a set of gear wrench locking flex wrenches, set of gear wrench box end wrenches, and then the mountain box end wrenches, which are really nice. We have 3 of these wrench holders, which I made just to keep the space really tight and efficient. That way we could get all the automotive equipment in this one toolbox that I use frequently. On to the plier drawer. This drawer is mostly filled with Knipex pliers. Knipex is my favorite. I just love the quality that they have. We have some snap-on stuff in here as well. I find that pliers are really hard to organize if you have a lot of them, so I use these stand-up wire mesh holders, and I went ahead and attached them to the drawers so they don't shift around. This way I can have all the pliers that I use on a daily basis at the ready and organized. Moving on down to a drawer that doesn't get a whole lot of love. This is the pneumatic drawer. There are a couple things in here that get used a lot, like the air hammer. We have Big Nasty in here, and the snap-on air hammer. I use this belt sander and my DA. Other than that, a lot of this stuff sits. It's been replaced with newer electric stuff, but you gotta have it. It is nice to have some pneumatic stuff at some point. On to the last drawer here. We have our torque wrenches here in the back. This is my wife's favorite tool. This is a snap-on digital torque wrench. She loves to use that to torque her wheels. We have underneath that, we have a gear wrench complete tap kit. It's like 258 pieces. I have a lot of higher quality units, but this kit is really nice because it has it all in one spot. And if you're not doing anything crazy and you can't find it, usually this kit has it. So that's great to have. We have some Lang thread repair kits. And then we have a brake caliper compressor over there, a valve spring compressor, a puller, some spring compressors, which I never use, and a coolant flush device. Moving right along to the infamous miscellaneous drawer. Every one of the toolboxes I've seen has one of these guys. Basically, it has anything that doesn't go in any of the other drawers. You have your scrapers, you have some Loctite, some touch-up paint, some brake caliper hangers, some spare car keys, some stubby metric wrenches, some Tylenol, and yeah, some magnets, flashlights, that kind of stuff. Below that, we have the hammer drawer. I really, really love these snap-on soft blow, or I'm sorry, dead blow hammers. They have a really nice feel to the handle. They're very, very durable. And then I just have a couple of these Menards. I actually like these. They're like beater dead blow hammers. I've had them for a long time. I have some higher quality dead blow hammers, but those ones tend to work as well. And then we got a couple, you know, like some wood hammers that I've made. This is like a fine woodworking handle that got demoted to automotive use. We got some spare Japanese plain handles or hammers that I use for automotive stuff. And then we have a brass, actually I think it's a copper hammer back there as well. And then we have some brass tipped hammers here in the front. Moving along to the last drawer in this toolbox, we have one of my favorite tools. This is a mini ductor. If you work on old cars and you know a bolt is going to break, whip out this guy. What this guy does is it is an induction heater, and it has a coil that you put in the front, and you pull the trigger and it heats the bolt up cherry red. It's kind of like using a torch, but you don't need an open flame. I use this all the time working on old stuff on exhaust. Exhaust bolts always snap. You preheat them, and the chance of them not snapping is very low compared to without heat. So we have that. We have a Cornwell. Here are the coils for it. We have a Cornwell socket set here that just has like a lot of hex stuff, E-Torx, Torx. This is just spare stuff, but I use this set. And then we have a bunch of zip ties, and then a brake caliper kit that has all the things for doing rear brake calipers where you got to twist them. So that's everything in this toolbox. We'll move on to the second toolbox over here. This next snap-on toolbox is used more for general work. The top here has all my Milwaukee tools. Highlights of this drawer. This guy right here, I love this thing. It is a 3/8 stubby. And then we just picked up this 90-degree 3/8, and that's really awesome as well for getting into really tight spots like doing brake jobs pretty quick. This guy is a behemoth, has 1,400 pounds of breakaway strength. Between this and the mid-torque, we pretty much eliminate entirely the need for anything pneumatic. And then we got some drills, some drivers, and then this guy, I love this guy. This I use mostly with these 3M sanding discs for shaping metal, but it can be used to clean up aluminum with Scotch-Brite discs, all kinds of stuff like that. This first drawer I have here is drivers and foam. I love doing this. It helps me stay organized, and you can see right away when something's missing. It's just really, really nice. I have all my Bondhus drivers in here. We have standard and metric ball drivers. We have some Torx, some small like glasses screwdrivers, and some Vessel JS screwdrivers, and just some picks and some X-Acto knives. On to the second drawer here. This is kind of a miscellaneous measuring marking drawer. We have just some like cheap squares. This square is actually really, really nice, but it was in the fire. Still accurate, but I just use it as a beater square. Some more Allen wrenches, trammel points, random machete, nothing too crazy. Moving on down below, this is probably a drawer that belongs over in the automotive section, but there's no room. This drawer has all my chisels, punches. I have a really large set of Knipex channel locks that are probably the width of this drawer, and a really large crescent wrench that are down at the new shop. Pry bars, I really like these snap-on pry bars, the new style. Yeah. This next drawer has some general construction stuff. In my previous job, I did siding repair, roofing repair, windows, that kind of stuff. So I got a lot of vinyl snips, hammers, caulk guns, just stuff that you'd use around the house. I do keep like some rubber mallets in here and stuff like that. But yeah. Over here, we have another kind of miscellaneous drawer. We have a bunch of Allen keys. These are some Mobile Solutions templates that you use with a router table to get a really nice clean edge, different radiuses. We have some Sawzall blades, my battery jigsaw, and some markers, the logo that I made for a branding iron. The bottom drawer here has a lot of stuff I don't use frequently. I have 2 Sawzalls. That one was in the fire, it works fine. I never use that, I almost always use the battery one. Heat gun, we have a palm router, a nailer, glue gun. Yeah, nothing too crazy in there. This drawer is pretty miscellaneous. Just has some extra spanner wrenches, huge heatsink, and just some random junk in there. Moving down to the next drawer, this is where we keep all the files. I keep them right by the vise. That's where we use them. These are the beater files. I have a set of nicer files, but we have some Craftsman, some Nicholson. We have some mini files. We have a whole box of needle files. Those are really nice to have. And then rasps, wire wheels, pretty much anything for cleaning anything up by hand. Underneath that drawer, C-clamps, miscellaneous stuff. This toolbox here has a little bit more space in the drawers. I've moved a lot of this stuff to the walls, so the drawers are really not as well laid out, but that's okay. Aside from the top drawer and the first 3 drawers, I pretty much don't use much in this toolbox on a daily basis. And then the last drawer down here has one of the Milwaukee saws that I have, belt sander, battery heat gun. I'm a huge fan of the Milwaukee battery stuff. It's not perfect. I've had a bunch of stuff that I got to send in and get remade, but the warranty is really good. The price is very good for what you get, and they are the most innovative in my opinion. They just have the biggest line of tools, and when I'm doing all different trades, I can use Milwaukee stuff for car stuff or house stuff, so I really like their stuff. That saw is a beast, and I have another one just like it. Taking a look up there, we have a lot of the automotive stuff that I have that comes in cases. We have an OTC compression tester, OTC fuel pressure gauge kit. I have an OTC hub grappler, OTC bearing puller. I have a hydraulic battery crimper. We have some 2P10 over here, some 2P10 wax. We have snap-on gear pullers, OTC slide hammer. We have a big slide hammer. We have AC gauges up there for disconnecting the AC fittings. We got tons of extra clips for cars. Moving over here, we have the Astronomic Radiator Pressurization Kit. And then in this Craftsman bin up here, we have all my AC stuff. AC gauges, I have a Robinair AC leak detector above that. Over here we have a bottle jack, we have a Harbor Freight buffer, we have a Smoke Pro up in the corner. It's kind of hard to see, but basically they use that for trying to find vacuum leaks. I have an ozone machine up there, and then in this Craftsman box right here, I have all my AC stuff. Manifold gauges, UV lights, all that kind of stuff that you use for diagnosing AC problems. I'm over here at my Snap-on diagnostic cart. As you can see, I love these green Snap-on boxes. The build quality is great. I love the color. They're ridiculously expensive. I've pretty much bought all of them used at about half price or better because it's ridiculous what they charge for these things. The top drawer here, we have my scanners. I have a Veris. It's a D10. This is the newer Veris. I had the older one. It was in the fire. This is a good scanner. It doesn't do as good on newer stuff. It's good to about 2014. Has the wireless dongle. And then I have my Autel. This one goes right up to 2020. The Autel is great, but if you're doing diagnostic work, you know that you need multiple scanners because one scanner may work on a car, another one may not. We have the AES Wave. I think it's like a relay tester. This is awesome. This is something that they make and AES Wave sells. Basically, you can use it to bypass a relay. So if you're trying to test something like a AC compressor, You can go ahead and plug this into the AC relay and manually toggle the compressor on, basically not only to rule out a faulty relay, but to check your wiring up to that point without even getting in there. It's a great tool. We have a infrared meter, basically one of those like thermal imaging guns. Super dusty. I rarely use it, but when you need one, it helps you find things you wouldn't otherwise be able to find. Looking for like insulation in house where you're getting leaks, looking on a car, different spots where you have maybe a misfire, something like that can really help to determine the temperature differential in the intake runners or in the exhaust. Over here we have my longer 36-inch snap-on pry bar and a couple long screwdrivers. And then in the back here I have a Surface Pro. I basically use this only for the shop, and I use it for the Picoscope. It's kind of overkill for that, but whatever, it's convenient. On to the first drawer here. Everything in the shop is dusty. The shop is small, so I do all the painting, all the blasting, all the grinding, everything in here. It's not ideal, but it is what it is. These are the leads for my snap-on scanner for the scope. We got a bunch of batteries, some more leads from my previous scanner, charging cords. I got a fan for my camera that I need to swap out. Nothing too crazy in this drawer. In this drawer we have my Picoscope. I love this thing. They aren't cheap, but they are worth their weight in gold. This is something that when you're diagnosing cars really takes you to the next level. The Snap-on has a scope built in, but this has extremely high resolution, and using the computer I can record it at a high resolution and actually go and zoom into the waveforms. I still need to learn how to use this. I've had it for maybe a year or two, but there's always stuff you could learn. You could spend your whole career learning how to read waveforms on cars, but having this is super helpful. We have a injection probe. This is just like a quick probe that you can put on a coil pack and see if you're getting a waveform, see if you're getting spark basically. We got some more leads back there, just a bunch of leads. We have more probes and extensions. All right, in this drawer we have my meters. I have a Fluke 88. I love that thing, and then a 117 just as a backup. I've got more leads here. We've got the power probe here, which is great to have extra leads for that. We have a torch that I use for heat shrink, and then we have a borescope, and then a couple 12-volt testers. We have a normal one here, and then we have a long reach, and then we have, this is an infrared thermometer I use for AC work, and then we have suction cup mounts for putting your phone in the car for doing diagnosis on vibration. We have that. Moving down, we just have a lot of leads and attachments. I have a pocket oscilloscope. That's a great tool. I haven't put much time into using it, but it just fits in your pocket. And then we have some extension leads, some fills probes, which is made by AES. It's not made by AES Wave. It's sold by AES Wave. A guy named Phil came up with this. These are absolutely brilliant. This allows you to come in there and hook a wire, and you can actually probe it from far away. These are amazing. You can't be using them for high amperage, obviously, just the design, but for getting a signal, those are amazing. We got some of the Fluke clamp-on probes, some heat shrink, some splice connectors that are crimp-on with the heat shrink and the glue, and we got some solder, that kind of stuff like that. In this drawer here, we have a bunch of electrical connectors. I have some huge battery terminal connectors from when I did car audio stuff, more crimp connectors, heat shrink, extra wire, fuses, just a little bit of everything. We have some connectors for making battery cables and extending battery wires. We have some house wiring stuff. That doesn't really need to be in there, but that's fine. And then in the last drawer here, I have a scale. I use that for weighing my Freon when I'm doing an AC job. I have the Aes Test Probe Kit. This kit is awesome. Basically, it has all of the probes that you need for doing testing on automotive connectors. It's just a great kit to have. I love that kit. I have my soldering gun, which is a Weller. I had it set up on the bench, but we took the bench down, but whatever model that is, this is a great soldering gun. All of the Wellers are great, actually. We have the Obd2 Breakout Box for checking the CAN bus lines on cars when we have an error with the CAN signals. More heat shrink. I got some resistors. I got some special resistors, 3.3 ohm for just substituting an airbag load. Since I was doing the rebuild on this, we put the airbags in, you know, there's no issues, but I wanted to try this out and see if these worked. I haven't tried them, but I've read online that certain resistor loads will substitute the airbag signal. So we got all that stuff in the bottom. On to the next. Here's a look inside my heated chemical cabinet. We'll get more into this in my other video, but this is a high quality Just Right cabinet. I have the foil wrapping everywhere and the insulation, and then I just have like my automotive stuff in here. We got body filler, we've got wood glue, basically anything. A lot of the automotive stuff doesn't actually need to be prevented from freezing, but I keep it in there because I don't want any issues. We got polish, and then in here I have a fireball. If you don't know what this is, look it up. Basically, if there's a fire inside of this cabinet, this will actually explode and extinguish the fire. It's really, really, really cool. So I got one of these in there just for safety. There's a couple heaters throughout. There's one there, and one there. And then you probably can't see it, but there's temperature probes there, and there. I have 3 different ones, and they're all set up on backups. So that way if we lose power to one, or if one breaker pops during the winter and I'm not here, we have another heat source. So 3 levels of redundancy. It's definitely overkill, but what I wanted to make sure is if it was super cold outside and one of the heaters popped a circuit and I wasn't here, we'd have another heater and then another heater. They really don't get that hot. This cabinet here will be basically set to a minimum of 45, and so what it allows me to do is in the winter when it's like -20 outside, this cabinet will maintain a level above freezing by about 10 degrees and keep everything in here in good shape. It doesn't get too hot. This normally isn't laying on top of the element, but it really preserves everything. I know doing something like this is not inherently safe because you have a heating element inside a cabinet, and I'm aware of that. I basically wanted to do it as safe as I could while still maintaining the ability to have a heated cabinet. So the whole cabinet's metal. It is fireproof on the outside. My assumption was that if there was ever a fire inside here, that it would retain the fire, and then we have the fireball, which I normally keep in the middle, and that would put the fire out. But you just try to be as safe as you can. Typically you wouldn't need to do this if this was connected to your garage or something, but in this case I am about 20 minutes away from the shop, and I don't want to lug all of this stuff home with me in the winter and then bring it back when I need it. So I wanted a solution that would work for my needs and be the best possible solution that I could think of, as safe as possible. So that's that. All right, I'm also going to show you my sustainers and how I have them set up. Hopefully these setups will be helpful for someone else in case they want to mimic this. Real quick, before I show you these, I just want to talk about why sustainers, why I love them so much, and why I love the Festool brand. So first, Festool is probably one of the best brands when it comes to woodworking. They're German made. They are very intentional about their ergonomics, their workflow, efficiency, quality, and I really value that and appreciate that. Being in construction and remodeling for many years and woodworking, all of those things are very important to me. So specifically with their sustainers, I've fallen in love with these. These are about on the same level as a Lista cabinet for me. I've used pretty much everything. I've used the Milwaukee stuff, the pack out, I like it, I have it. I've used the rigid stuff, I've used the L boxes, I've used just milk crates. I've used pretty much every type of storage when it comes to job site, construction, remodeling, woodworking, storage, and the sustainers for me are the best. They do take up more room, The argument can be made that you can just throw more equipment in the box empty or in some other box, and that is true. But they do have, in my opinion, the best combination of organization to space ratio with the ability to transport, and that's what makes these unique. So I often transport my equipment to job sites, and so I wanted stuff that keeps me organized and allows me to go to the job site quickly and effectively, and also maintain a sense of professionalism. When you roll up to the job site and you use a dolly and you carry like 10 of these, and that's it, and you make one trip, people are wowed. And everything fits together really, really nicely. It really does make a difference. So I'm going to show you how I have these set up. Some of them are pretty standard, and then a lot of them are custom. I had me and my wife make these labels for them. I had all this stuff pre-set up before the fire and lost all of it. So all the stuff that's in foam, we redid everything. It takes a long time, but it's completely worth it. So the first one here is going to be for my woodworking stuff. Specifically my hand tool woodworking. If you take a look in here, this has my Stanley Sweetheart planes. We have a number 5 jack plane, a number 4, that's like your typical hand plane. We have a block plane in here, and then I have 2 Japanese planes. I have just a standard Japanese plane back here, and then this plane here, which I forget the name to, but it's designed to go ahead and tune that plane in the back. I have it set up in foam. It is a tragedy. I haven't really spent a lot of time using this stuff since I've set it up. I've just been too busy and I don't really have a woodworking bench, but that's something that in the future I look forward to doing more of, as I would love to do more Japanese woodworking and woodworking with hand tools. And it's something my wife enjoys as well. So hopefully this will get some more use. In this drawer down here, we have our Japanese, these are, I believe, white oak, maybe it's a red oak handles, and this is forged in the same technique they use with the white steel at the tip, I believe, and then the blue steel for the base. You can see the forge line here. These chisels are really, really nice. They are very expensive, but they do have a hollow grind on the back, makes it easy for sharpening. I've always wanted a set of these. These aren't like the top end, but they were a couple $100. They're really nice. So, and then I have a burnisher over here, some wax to keep everything nice and lubricated, some marking gauges, Narex marking gauges, some awls, that kind of stuff. That's that one. More woodworking stuff over here. In this sustainer, I have all my PPE. I've spent many years getting injured. Haven't had any major injuries recently, but I try to take PPE as seriously as I can. Anyone who works in the field knows that the reality of PPE is different than what it's like in a book, but we try to be as safe as we can. So in this, I have some earring protection that's not in here, respirator, this one's pretty rough, some gloves, hearing protection, eye protection, respirator, actually replacements here. In the bottom we have Band-Aids, I have aspirin, wrap, burn spray. Basically what I try to do is just create a first aid kit that was combined with PPE, and I can take this onto the job site and bring it with me. That way when something happens, I have it, and then to prevent something happening, I have the hearing protection, the eye protection, ear protection, that kind of stuff. So I take this with me. This is a really nice setup. And then again, we got the custom labels that we made. Moving along to these sustainers here in the shelf. As you can see, it's super dirty. This is the problem with doing woodworking and metalworking. This is right by the mill. In the new shop, it'll be in the woodworking section. We'll get it all cleaned up. But we're working with what we got. So first one here, we have our jigsaw. This guy doesn't get a lot of love, but he's there when we need it. Nothing too custom in here, but we have the Festool Jigsaw and a bunch of blades. Coming down here, this is one of my wife's favorite tools. This is is it a Graco? No, it's a Kydex. It's a pin nailer, 21 gauge, and we got a couple of custom regulators, which we need because we use these Prevost connectors and the high flow fittings from Milton. So we got that. Underneath here, we just have some router bits in a foam tray. Nothing too crazy there. And then below that, we have our second router. The first router here was in a fire, and we have that. That's in rough shape, but this one, OFT 1400 or OF 1400, it's a great router. Doesn't get a lot of use right now, but hopefully it will shortly. Moving over here, we have my measuring and marking. I don't know if you can see the label that we made for it over there. And this one has everything for doing installs. So by installs, what I mean is hanging TVs, leveling things, pictures, framing, all that kind of stuff. So I have my stud finder in here. I've got my Stabilo digital level. Even underneath here, I have some flexible rods for fishing through the wall, and I specifically got these because they fit in this case. The idea here is that when I'm going to the job site or I'm going to do something like hang a TV, I can bring one thing and it has everything. It has the stuff for running the wires between the walls, has the stuff for finding level, finding the studs, everything's in one kit. I even have a charger and a light and some pencils, the batteries, tape measure. So if I forget something, everything is here. This is a great kit. It's made me tons of money. I do a lot of these small jobs where people need stuff, and I just take this. Everyone loves a laser. These lasers are cheap. It's like 150 bucks. Go grab yourself a laser. Even if you're doing it yourself, these make a huge difference. And they really, people tend to love the laser, so that's cool. Moving on down the line, we have the Festool Drill, which is missing. It's over by the lathe. I use it for my power feed, but it's a CSX. This is a foam cutout I made because this one made it through the fire, but we didn't have the tray. So that's that. Moving on down, we have another one here. You can probably see some melting damage here, but this is just some bits. This one was rescued as well from the fire, but this is just the Festool Installer Kit. Kind of expensive as a lot of their stuff is, but it is worth it. They have everything. They even have like an eye hook installer, so that's cool. All right. Moving on down the line, we have the track saw, which is one of the oldest Festool things that I have. Works great. As you can see, it has been through the fire. It survived. Actually, fun tip, not a single tool that I've had from them has ever been destroyed. So I have a sander over there, which you'll see, that has been through 2 fires. That's been through 1. And some of these boxes have degraded, but the tool, even if the box melts around it, the tool has never failed. So I'm not saying they're fireproof, but they're well made. The plastics are high quality. They have probably a higher melting point than other plastics, if I had to guess. I love that track saw. It's the first Festool tool I've ever gotten. If you're ever going to buy anything from them, that should be the first thing you buy, because that is a great, great tool. Over here to the left side, the first one here is a Dremel container, custom label, super dirty like everything else. We have my Dremel 4000, we have the flex shaft, which I love, and we have a bunch of these easy connect. These are great. These are just a much better way than the old style where it's just a screw. These allow you to snap these on pretty quickly. I don't use this a ton. I used to use it a lot before I had bigger equipment to cut metal, but it's great for detail work. It's good to, it's good to have buffers, sanding wheels. You just need a Dremel every once in a while, and we got this one all set up here. All right, moving down to the next drawer. I have a drawer specifically set up for air hose. It's very boring, but very practical. I have the air hose and the nails. The reason I did this is so when I go out to the job site, I don't have the cord flopping around in the back of my car. I just bring the sustainer, and it has the cord inside it, or the hose rather, for my air compressor. Down to the next drawer, we have a beautiful drawer of pretty much entirely woodworking measuring tools. So we have a nice brand new Starrett caliper, a Starrett 3-way combination square, a woodpecker square, I also had a cutout for the smaller stair, which I now use mostly for metalworking, and that's in a different area. But this is nice to have all this stuff lined up. If you're doing woodworking, it's cool to have all this. Honestly, stuff like this, probably in a shop, should be hanging on a wall, but I've done a lot of work mobily, and so I set all this up in a mobile fashion, and it does keep it nice, and it keeps all this clean even though everything in the environment is dirty. So that is cool about this. And then onto the bottom, we have the Robinair partnered with Festool to bring the compressor inside a sustainer. I just have this here for vibration, but basically it's an air compressor inside a sustainer. Is it necessary? No, it's not. It's just really cool. I don't use it that often, but it's nice if I do need to run the nailer on the job site. I can just bring this with me. It's not that heavy comparatively. It's quiet, and it stacks together with everything else. This sustainer here has all the clamps. For the Festool system, we have the edge clamps, the ratcheting clamps, pretty much all the clamps, and then this actual bench can be used to clamp work pieces, has the 20mm dog holes. We did a, oh look at that, it's stuck to the drawer. I guess I haven't taken it out in a while. We have the special logo here that I made, just tell me what's in there. Moving on down to the next one. I'll give you a shot at the logo here. This is just has like some grinding stuff. This is all sharpening. So yeah, it's clean on the inside. That's the benefit of having these cases. It's all in foam. There's a 4-inch Dmt Flattening Stone. It's diamond. And again, my hands are dirty. Probably shouldn't be doing this, but just to give you an idea, we have a Japanese $10,000 or 10,000 grit stone. I have an 8,000 double-sided stone, a 6,000 double-sided, a 400, a 1,000, and some stone sharpeners and a honing guide all in there. So hopefully this will not really live in here, but the idea is that if you're sharpening, you can take them out, and each one has its own stand, and you can sharpen and then put the stones back in here. All right, and then on to the last one in the stack. We have my Bosch Oscillating Saw. I went ahead and put that in a sustainer with foam as well. Got some blades, some stuff for tile work, wood stuff. I've got the fine blades. This is a pretty good oscillating tool. This is the one that they make in Sweden. I don't know if they make this one anymore, but they had a cheaper one and a more expensive one that was made in Sweden. And the nicer one has a lot more oomph. So that one's kind of nice. Underneath here, the sustainer that I use the most is gone. That one is just that size, but it has all of the tools that I use for typical handyman stuff, screwdrivers, hammers. I made like a custom insert tray for it, and that's at the new shop. Right next to that, we also have a gap here, and that is where my sustainers go for screws, and that's at the new shop as well. All right, this sustainer here, this is just has sandpaper in it for my sander. I think it has like 80 to 1500, nothing crazy there. This one is where my sanders are. And this sustainer, these sanders come in 2 separate sustainers, but I actually made them in the same sustainer because I thought that would make sense space-wise. But I have a RO90. This is the sander that has been through 2 fires, 2 separate locations, and it is pretty old, and my favorite sander because it's really small. And then I have a 125 Rotex as well, and then I have the pads for it, and then the cord, and I got it all in there. Over here on the last row on the end, we just have some more sandpaper and a sustainer for the bigger sander. Nothing too exciting there. We have the ETS sander. It's a good sander, but I rarely use it just because I like the Rotex ones a little bit better, but it's just your standard style sander, like the orbiting one. Looks like whoever used it last might have been me. Didn't put it back in here. But yeah, that's that sander. And then on the bottom, we have a drywall kit. You can see I actually have a piece of foam in here, and I have all the knives so that they have their own spot. It is a huge pet peeve of mine. I've been on a lot of job sites, And mostly what you'll see is you'll see a drywall pan in the back of some guy's truck, 1 or 2 low quality knives you get from Home Depot covered in mud and have never been cleaned, and that drives me insane. So basically what we did is we did a sustainer to keep everything organized, allow it to stack, and then I've got a knife holder for each knife, keep it separate, and I try to keep the knives as clean as I can. And then we also have the corner tools, the sanders, the 5-in-1 tools. I keep a knife in here just cause, a rasp, some cleaners, and then usually I'll have like a roll of tape or whatever in here as well. I use this kit a ton when I'm doing drywall work. Keeps me organized, keeps me efficient, and keeps everything clean. So some more sustainers that have an honorable mention are this older style. I use that to keep all my bolts in there, screws, anchors, that kind of stuff. And then if you look at the top, I have that vacuum that is in the sustainer. That thing is great. It's small, it's compact. I love it. It's just a great sustainer overall. I have a couple more sustainers. Floating around here, but that's where I keep most of my remodeling work. I just keep it condensed in a sustainer / some woodworking stuff. That way I can be efficient, and then I can store it on this miter station that we see down here. And then when I'm going to the job site, all I have to do is come in to the shop, grab what I need, and leave. All right, I figured I would run through this Lista cabinet over here just to show you what's in there. This is our newest Lista cabinet. It's not fully set up yet, but I'll just show you what we have so far. So this top drawer is a miscellaneous drawer with automotive parts. Remember, all the stuff that was in here was stored in a bunch of clear bins. But yeah, we got water pump, we got some bearings, we got some O2 stuff, short shift kit for my car, some wiring, some O2 stuff. Moving on down, this is some machinery stuff, some building stuff. We got some springs, some pillow blocks. We got all kinds of clamps, machine handles, all kind of stuff like that, hose clamps, bearings. Moving over to the next drawer here, we have all the screws. This would be screws you have for like house stuff. So we have roofing nails, siding nails, drywall screws, deck screws, sheet rail, siding screws for the wall in here. We got some anchors in there, some Tech screws, just screws in general. Just a quick note, just like the Festool system, I absolutely love Lista cabinets. They are extremely expensive, way more expensive than Festool, but for what you get, they're amazing. This is the most efficient way to store screws, in my opinion, that there is. I open the drawer, I can see exactly what I have and the exact level of quantity that I have it, and I can grab it really easy. Using these trays, I can just pull the tray out and take it over to where I'm working. It is awesome. So I try to do as much stuff Lista as I can, but as you guys can see, like, I'm not buying these new. I think I paid $900 for this cabinet, which is pretty much the cheapest 18 drawer cabinet I could find. That's a lot of drawers. And then all the other ones that I have, I've paid $700 or less for. So I try to get them very, very cheap, and usually they're in rough shape and I clean them up. One day, I would love to get a bunch of new Lista cabinets, but that's just a dream for now. I love, love, love Lista cabinets. So that's my rant on that. The next drawer here, I just have some framing nails, some siding nails, trim nails, just some nails and shims. And then this guy here in this drawer, this has a lot of like miscellaneous screws, stuff that's been ordered from McMaster-Carr that comes in little boxes. This is really nice. It's not labeled. I do have other screws that are labeled and other bolts where it's like 1/4 20, 5/16, half. But this is nice because I can come in here and I can look at it, and even though it's not labeled, I know that all this stuff is standard. So I know that this is a 3/8. I know that this is 440 or whatever, and this is 1/4 20. And then we got like some spacers, some rivets, weld nuts, just miscellaneous. We got some O-rings back there, set screws. This is really, really nice just to come and look and see what we have. Moving on to the next drawer, this is all air compressor stuff. So we have stuff for running the air compressor lines in the shop. I got some black pipe connectors for doing other black pipe stuff, some just machine screws here in the front, some hose fittings in the back, and just some hinges back there. The next drawer here, we're getting kind of thin on stuff in the drawers, but I have some outlets, some outlet cover boxes. That's going to go to the new shop. Just electrical stuff in general, like house electrical stuff. And the next drawer is pretty bare. We got some C-clips and some machine parts. We got a lot of bare drawers in this one. This is all stuff for Tormek. You know, we got a drill bit sharpener, a DBS 222 or whatever the heck it's called. We've got, you know, gauges, knife stuff, scissor stuff. I don't use a Tormek a ton, but it is a great tool and it does have a lot of capabilities. This one, empty. Listen, here's the thing about empty drawers. When you look on YouTube, you see, oh, it's an empty drawer, you know, you don't have stuff to fill it. I'm telling you, empty drawers is a great thing. You want to get to the place where you have a lot of empty drawers, because then as you grow, you have a place to put it. So I love having a lot of empty drawers. That means that I have room to grow. So another empty drawer down here. All right, we have some towels. See, I mean, storing towels in a listed cabinet seems like a waste, but I have the space, so it's there. This drawer, we have all the tape. I used to have these on a roll with all the tape lined up. Those are all the cool ideas you see online, but the problem is it's not very useful. You want to take a piece of tape or like a roll off. You have to take the whole piece of tape roll off the rod. It's a pain in the butt. This is nice. I can see what I have, and I can just take the roll of tape with me. Underneath, I think we have gloves. Yep, just gloves. Kind of a shame, but it is what it is. We have spray paint. Honestly, they make a lot of great ways to store spray paint. The best way to do it is in like a rack that has a bunch of holes in it. We didn't have wall space in this shop, so I went with this, but probably in the new shop, I'll go ahead and I'll get some of those wood CNC cut racks where I can just line these up on the walls. But we use a lot of spray paint, specifically black. Just painting a lot of stuff shot black. It's really nice to have different paint for that. We have another one with spray paint as well. And then I think the last one, I don't even know what's in this. This is more spray paint. All right. All right, this listed cabinet here on top is probably the worst one I've ever seen. We got it restored decently. By restored, I just mean operating. I'm going to restore it in the future. But these handles were falling off. The inside looks like it was in the bottom of the sea. I paid $250 for this cabinet, or I think $200 actually. So I'm not going to take you through all the drawers in this. It's pretty boring. I have all my paint stuff in here. Like if you can see in there, which you probably can't, I've got respirators and paint masks. I got sandpaper, you know, painting stuff. It's nothing exciting. Moving along to this next one, the blue one. This guy is probably my favorite listed cabinet that I have. This one is the one that I actually restored, and it's where I keep all of my tooling for the lathe and the mill. So let me bring you in here. So the first, and then this one has a couple of empty drawers as well, but this one is pretty full. So the first drawer here, absolutely nothing. I've got a bunch of rod, like drill rod. I've got a bunch of these like really thin drill bits and a machinist ready reference. Next one is completely nothing. Not ashamed of an empty drawer. The next one here is lathe tooling. So we have all the insert tooling, the extra stuff that I have. All the other stuff is over on the lathe. A bunch of insert holders. We've got parting tools over here. Let me bring you in a little closer. All right, we got parting tools over here. We have high-speed steel in the back. The bigger boys, at least bigger to me, they're like 5/8 square. We got the quarter stuff. We got the half and some 3/8. We got a bunch of this brazed carbide stuff that I got for free. Initially, I wasn't a fan of it, but as you get better and you realize the limits and the benefits and you use it correctly, some of this stuff can be really, really nice. We have Edge Technologies bar for setting up the tailstock, and a couple of nuts that I have machined that I purchased online for the lathe for the cross feed. We got some carbide boring bars up here. A bunch of these I got for free, but I got a bunch of, or not for free, but for really, really cheap, maybe like $5 a bar. And they're small. I don't really use them, but they're there. And then we got a ton. These I got all for free. This is like a ton of like Empire weld-on carbide, I think. Yeah, some of these are carbide parting blades. A lot of them are too big for my lathe. This one's probably fine, but a lot of them are 1/8 or larger, and my lathe just doesn't really part very well with the bigger stuff. Moving on down, we have all the inserts. So I'll just kind of bring you over here. So here we have all the inserts. The story on inserts is if you're using them for home use, and I'm kind of in between home and industrial, inserts kind of don't make sense because they're really, really expensive. They do last a long time, but even for me as a machinist that's learning, I chip them faster than they dull. So all of these inserts in this drawer, I probably paid no more than $100 for over time. A lot of times I'll go to buy a tool holder on Craigslist, and the guy will have a bunch of inserts. Some of these I have paid full price, and by full price I mean eBay new full price, which means I'm paying like $30 for a pack. I try to keep the price as low as possible. You can do it, but you just have to be diligent. I love the carbide insert tooling. It just really cuts down on sharpening time, but you have to understand the limitations of it and realize that, you know, it can get expensive. So these are all the inserts for a lot of the tools. And I have, because I've gotten a bunch of inserts at a deal, I have tons of inserts like this, the triangle ones, where I don't have tooling for it. So at some point in the future, if I get those larger tool holders or tools, then I will have some extra inserts. So these are the inserts. The next drawer here is just a mismatch of squares. Like the sterret was in the fire before, so was this ruler. This is that sterret that was over in the woodworking stuff. I've got a smaller double square here, some cheap beater calipers over here. We have the micrometers over here, Mitutoyo, and then some sterret. These are pretty good shape. I just don't use them because I like the sterret ones that I have that have the dial on them. SPI, right angle gauges. We have some snap gauges. I got some thread wires. That's pretty much it. I keep this beater Harbor Freight one. I have it set up for measuring holes. That's kind of really nice for doing that. In this drawer here, I have a miscellaneous assortment here. This has my 1, 2, 3 blocks, my scribe. I've got some of these. I forget the name of them, but they're for finding the center of a hole. These are great. Punches, feeler gauges. I've got a couple indicators back here. We've got the one that I used mostly, which is brown and sharp with the extra long tip. I actually switched to using a different brown and sharp one that has a much larger dial. It's easier to see on camera, but that's a great indicator. And then this is a Federal, and then it has a real short one. And then the attachments, I got that, I think, pretty cheap. I try to get deals really, really cheap because this stuff it's expensive. I've got one of these guys for doing pipe wall. Like on these, I think I paid like 30 and like 20. Like I try to get them pretty cheap. We have a sterret, a back plunge indicator. Like this one is pretty much mint, probably because people don't use it as much. I don't use it as much, so it sits there. But that's nice. I got sterret caliper, or set of calipers in here. We have a sterret number 89, probably sitting a little bit too close to my stones, but this is brand new. I bought this to level the lathe. And then we have a Acme pitch gauge here, and then we have the sterret Acme pitch gauge. This is way overpriced, but it is what it is. Ironically, I paid like $60 for this sterret one, And then a couple days later, I met a guy who had pretty much the same one, but it's a Brown and Sharp one, and he let me have it for basically free. These are ridiculously expensive. I have no idea why. That's this drawer. Coming down to the next drawer, this is all my cutters. I don't have a ton of cutters comparatively to a lot of you guys with big shops, but I've gained these from buying machinery from different people, and I've purchased a couple. This is all high-speed steel, pretty much. You know, we have some big boys here. We got some big boys here. We have the double-ended ones. We have some radius cutters. And then over here, I purchased these. I've got maybe like 5 of these. These are all reground. So these are Reground Carbide there. I use those mostly. I try to use carbide mostly, but I like the Reground stuff because it's cheap. Works good. And then I bought a couple not like nice like Smarry tool. You know, I have some Smarry tool countersinks and a couple, not a lot, but a couple. I got a Smarry tool round nose, a couple like new stuff that I paid full price for, but I have enough cutters to get me by for now. The next drawer here is some more cutters. These are, I think, Woodruff cutters or key cutters. I think I got all of these Woodruff cutters for like $40, including, maybe not including, I think I paid like another $30 for all these. Again, just trying to find really good deals on a lot of this stuff. These are all high speed. These are high speed, but I have these if I need them. I'm sure I will at some point. I got a nice Smarry tool face mill. That one I did get new. It has a 45-degree rake on it. It's pretty nice. A little more than the Bridgeport can take, which I probably figured it would be, but I'm actually getting a bigger mill, so that'll be put to good use. I have one of these Suburban Tool fly cutters. I haven't used it yet, but I hope that it will be leagues ahead of the cheap Chinese one that I got. So I'm looking forward to using that. More slitting saw stuff. That's some more tooling there. The next one here is all reamers. So reamers you can get pretty cheap depending on who you're getting it from. I have all these ones labeled. I don't know if you can tell. You shouldn't store them like this, I know. But if you look at most shops, to be honest, a lot of these guys have reamers just all in a drawer. So ideally they shouldn't be touching because you don't want to dull them, but you know, hey, this is the real world here. They'll be fine as long as they don't bounce around. I do have them organized, which is good because when they're in a huge drawer and reamers are so specific, that doesn't help anyone. So I got it like 0.631 to 0.755. Basically, it's like, you know, 5/8 to 3/4, 3/4 to half. I have it in sets because I don't have a complete set. So I know if I need a reamer that's 3/4, I can look over here. Okay, it's 0.75 and up, and I can kind of narrow it down. And then I got ones over here that are unmarked. I can't read them, and I can measure them. Measuring them is not as accurate, but it's besides the point. I got a couple taper reamers. I probably paid, I don't know, $100 for all these reamers. And I'm only telling you the price on this because I always want to know what people pay. A lot of times people don't share that. I am not afraid to share it. I think it's really helpful to figure out what our market pays for it, what you can get it for. To me, a lot of this stuff is just seeing what is possible. If I know a guy buys a bunch of reamers like that for $100, I know, hey, that is possible, and then it gives me the ability to like go and look for them at that cost. Whereas when I have no idea what anyone's paying, it kind of helps. It gives me, like, I have no idea what's out there. So that's why I share the prices with you on a lot of this stuff, because it lets you know what I paid for it, what it's possible to get it for, and I know it will help someone out there. I know I'm always curious about that. So the next drawer I have all my camera gear. I have a ton of camera gear, never enough as it always is, but I keep this stuff in here. This stuff will probably go to a new Lista cabinet with more camera gear with deeper drawers, because you really need that for this stuff. I've got some cheap lenses that I don't use anymore, batteries. I keep all the filters because everything that I do here is dirty. So I put a filter on. If sparks hit the lens, it hits the filter. I got strike tape. I got, you know, a Rode mic that I'm not using, quick adapter plates. You know, nothing too crazy. In this drawer. Most of my camera gear is either at home or it's being used. Speaking of camera gear, I'll show you that at the end. Next drawer here, we have more camera gear, some stands, a Joby tripod. These are kind of a YouTuber's thing, but they kind of suck, in my opinion. They're cool, but I use regular tripods. I don't really like them. These friction arms are great. I have some aperture lights, some like little lights. Yeah. Moving on down lower. Moving on down a little bit lower, we have this drawer here, which has all my Morse taper drill bits and chucks, and I have way too many of these, but these are like adapters. And then I have some arbors over here. I have some keys. I have some floating tailstock holders, some Morse taper 3 and 2, like dead centers. This is kind of where it's at. When I started out drilling, I was using like reduced shank large drill bits. You just don't want to do that if you can avoid it. Using these is way better, but these are in various states. So usually if I have a job, I'll buy the size that I need to use a lot of, or I can just sharpen one that I already have. But these Morse taper drill bits are way better than using like, something like this, which people do a lot when they don't have the capacity. I get it. I did it in the past. But you have a nice fat drill bit and you reduce the shank. It slips, it breaks, it's not worth it. If you can do it, using these style are way better, and I'm learning that, so that's great. Next drawer down, some miscellaneous stuff. All right, we have Edge technologies like mill tray. That's gonna happen when I redo the mill. I've got a bearing separator, my lone die holder. I need to get more of these. We have some cylinder hones of different sizes. I have a set of parallels, Chinese. I need to get better ones, but you know what? They work. Tooling just goes on forever, and you can always buy more. A bunch of acid brushes, a bunch of Kurt jaws. I have a brand new Kurt 6-inch vise as well, but that's going to go when we redo the milling machine. Some Edge Technologies stuff with a set screw mod from Tubal-Cain. That was a great idea. Edge Technologies dial indicator tram kit. That's really nice when setting up and tramming in the mill. That's about it. I got a bunch of old parallels from different gentlemen I bought machinery from. This drawer has collets, lots of collets. I have tons of R8 tooling, probably not nearly as much as most of you guys, but it's a lot to me. A lot of ETM stuff, which is the more expensive stuff. I think it's made in Israel. I bought a huge lot on eBay of it. I still had to pay a legitimate amount for it. I think it was like 200 bucks, but it had 8 holders and they're higher quality. I figured that would make a difference. I don't know if it has or not, but I have a bunch of tooling for that. Honestly, I use collets way more than the end mill holders and the ER40 holders, but it's nice to have. I've got some shell mill holders. What I've learned with machining is you need stuff that you have on hand that you use all the time, and then you also need a bunch of stuff that you rarely use, but when you need it, you need it. And so a lot of this stuff is buying stuff that you use and then buying stuff that you think you might use, because with machining there's tons of operations that are weird, and it's nice to have weird stuff occasionally. I've got all the R8 collets. I've got ER40, metric and standard, and then I have ER32, metric and standard. I've got these collet blocks. I've got a cheap boring head. I also have a Bridgeport boring head. Drill chucks. There's my cheap fly cutter. I have a huge radius bit. I have a R8 drill chuck. The last drawer I think is just extra camera stuff, nothing crazy, cords and stuff. That's everything in this cabinet. Over here at the arbor press, this is the back side of the belt grinder. There's a cart that I made for it. I have a bunch of steel stored on the bottom here, and then I have a plate where the arbor press sits on top of, where the arbor press has a notch in the plate. All right, I'm over here at the lathe. I want to talk about the setup of the lathe, the tooling around it, and how I have it set up. I think that's really important. I'm a big believer in optimizing workflow, and so I wanted to make this area as optimized as I could. So on the right here, underneath my loft, I have those files stored right there. I have some polished bar. That bar is polished and ground. I got that at a really, really good price. Basically, I paid $100 for all of that and all of the steel up top here. And it's really hard to tell, but there was about 3,000 pounds of steel, and a lot of it was round stock for turning, which is really nice because most of the steel I get is box tube and bar stock. So we got that on a steel. Over here, the actual lathe. In the back here, I have everything set up. So I have an ER32 set up. I have an ER40 collet for the tailstock, an ER32 collet for the tailstock, a Morse taper for the 5 dead center. We have a Morse taper 32, ER32 Morse taper 2. Actually, that's a Morse taper 3. All this is Morse taper 3. I don't know why I said it was Morse taper 2. We have a Chinese live center. Never buy one of these. They suck. The runout's terrible. I have a Bison live center that I use all the time. Super high precision. These are great. I have a number 16 Super Chuck. I love this. Of course, I want a number 20 in. I'm sure everyone wants one of those. I have an Albrecht 1/8 to 5/8 keyless chuck. And then I have I think it's a 1, if I can get it out here, a 1 to 13 millimeter keyless chuck for the smaller stuff. Up here on the shelf, and this is probably not the most desirable way, in some people's opinion, to store these, but I have my Mitutoyo Absolute caliper. I have my Starrett, I call it a manual, but it's not vernier, it's just not digital. The word's escaping me. But anyway, this is that. I keep these up here because it's really easy to grab and it's kind of out of the way. Moving along on the top shelf, I have the key chucks. I've got 1, 2, 3 blocks. I have my Starrett micrometers, and these are really nice. I like these, especially if you're learning, they're great. They have a readout on it, so you don't have to make a mistake doing math. I really like these. They are very expensive. I've purchased some of them on eBay for as cheap as $50 and as most as $100, which is pretty good because usually they're about $200 each. So I try to watch out, and I've got a set from 1 to 4 inches, which is good for most of what I do. I've got a depth micrometer here. We've got some copper jaws. I've got some whey oil over here in the corner. I got some screwdrivers here on the ledge. That is for taking the inserts out. Basically, I just wanted to make everything right at my hand. If you look in the back, I've got my 2 indicators. They are behind my DRO. So usually I'll slide my DRO over like that. And I've got the big one that we talked about over here. This is my large face, brown and sharp test indicator. And then I have my Starrett. It's not a crazy good one, but it's a Starrett one that has a plastic face, but it works well. They're both on Nogas, and right now on the Starrett I have that 90-degree attachment that you see here for picking up bores. So I keep those back here. When I need them, I move them. I've got another indicator here that I keep on this Aloris tool post. It's got a ton of chips on it, but yeah, I use that in the tool post if I need that. So that's everything over there. If we come along down here, I have all my chucks, wrenches in the back. I also have this wrench here, which is the size for the Aloris set screw. And then I try to keep all the tooling that I use the most over on this shelf here. So we have the parting tool, which this one I found works the best for me. I have a big negative insert tool holder, at least big to me. I have a Micro 100 chamfering tool, and then I have a neutral rake tool that has a positive insert that's kind of crowned that gives a decent finish, and then you know, just one of these negative rake inserts and another chamfering tool. I've got some boring bars, I've got some countersinks, I've got a threading tool from Aloris, you know, and then I've got in the back, I've got actually like a knurling tool from Aloris. That one's super expensive. I would not, it's good, but it's like $350. It's kind of overpriced. So yeah, there's all the tooling on the lathe. And then right over here in the corner on the edge of the shelf, I have my ER collet wrenches. So as you can see, I kind of have everything on the lathe to make it really easy to access. And then over here on this shelf above it, I have Dicom, I have my soft blow mallet, I've got tapping fluid, I've got anchor lube, I've got Allen wrenches, I've got the steady rest, I've got drill bits, I've got the small ones, I've got the big ones with the reduced shank, and I have even bigger ones in the back. And then here is that Festool drill that we talked about earlier, and I made this attachment so that I can use it for power feeding on my compound. So that's why I keep this over here. And then I've got some like headphones here. They're not headphones, they're hearing protection that I keep right next to the lathe, just to make everything nice and easy. I think that's about it with that. The other thing I want to highlight is, aside from all the camera gear set up there, I have my airline set up right here. So basically I can reach, when I'm doing the work, I can blow stuff off and it just plugs in right there. So everything is, you know, as close to hand as I can get it, and it works really nicely. All right, I want to talk about the workflow in this area. If you've noticed with the tour, we're very short on bench space. So we have this flip top miter station here. I keep it stored in the down position almost entirely all the time, so we can use this. And then what we do is we actually flip up the miter station down here, and it has the metal miter station. That flips up, and then we'll flip up the other one. And what's really nice is we can actually run steel all the way over underneath the belt grinder. And then if you lower the table on the mill, the workpiece can actually come and go over the mill table as well, or underneath it if you raise it all the way up. This is really nice because I can use it to cut like tubing and stuff like that. But then in most cases, when I just want the workbench, I can leave it flat on the top here so we can use it as a workbench. Now in the new shop, we'll have this set up probably all the time, because the biggest con like this is, although it is convenient to have both, I almost always try to avoid flipping this table up just to save time and to not have to take the plywood off and everything that's on here. And so I have this, you know, fine chop saw that's really nice for cutting steel, and I almost never use it. And we definitely want to change that. So, but this is how I can achieve both cutting and workbench in one area, because when I do have a big job where I'm doing a lot of cutting, I will flip this up and I can utilize cutting of long stock in this area. So this Bridgeport was from 1964. The condition is pretty good given the age. The head is a little bit noisy. It is not as noisy as some of the ones that I've heard before. But what my plan is in the winter time, I would love to tear this machine apart and rebuild it. I do have a new Kurt vise for it. I have a Mitutoyo measuring device here for the down feed. I have servos, servo power feeds for the Z-axis, the X-axis, and the Y-axis. I have a spacer block. I did mount the VFD to it. And I also have a Newall digital readout similar to the one I have on my lathe. So I have a lot of the equipment already. It's just sitting there. I also have an automatic tool changer for the top. I kind of have everything that I need to really deck it out. But what I typically do is I will acquire the stuff for the project, And then once I get everything, I will go full bore and try to not only do the restoration, but do any upgrading that I want to do at the same time. So once I get all that stuff done and ready, and we get settled in our new space, hopefully we'll get this guy on the block to be restored some point in the late winter, early spring. So that would be my plan with this. But until then, I've used this tons, and it works great. It's pretty tight. There's not a lot of movement in it, but I'm excited to see what it would be like once we get it restored. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and found the tour very helpful. Excited to move into the new shop and keep you guys updated on that. It's going to be a lot of work setting that space up, but believe me, we'll do a tour. We'll take you along for a ride so you can take a look at it. If you have any questions, as always, put them down below. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll try to get to your comments as best as I can, and we will see you in the next one. See ya.